Starting a recording. Okay. So let's get started with this. I just wanted to show you guys before we get started on some VOD review and into the boss directly. Something with the weak aura. We actually... So we're going to be using Northern Sky package. Something to take note of. I've already moved mine. But these all kind of start as bars on your character. So fair warning, like that always starts like right here and covers up your character by default. So I would shift them up. This one from Narrowbar Palace, as well as Northern Sky Narrowbar Palace, both do that and start with things that are on your character. So just fair warning on that. It will cover up your character if you don't take a moment and preset that and move it and figure out the things that you want. But yeah, this is the Northern Sky package. We're going to go with that for both both Silken Court and Ansrek. So that's all I wanted to go over with that. When we're into the fight, you can start thinking about the things that are useful for you and remove some of the information that's not useful, that sort of thing. But I would definitely move some of those bars and indicators as soon as you can. Okay, so let's get into this. Okay, so before we get started, pop quiz. For those of you that attended last week, does anybody remember the 3 major tenets of this fight that will help with Prog immensely if you can start with this mentality from the beginning? Anybody have any guesses?
So just like stick to a movement pattern that you find success with, damage doesn't matter, and something else?
Yes, you're on the right track.
4 orbs max. Well, 3 orbs max. 4 kills you.
Yeah, true. That's the way the mythic mechanic works. Smuck was on the right track with the tenets there. There was one that he was missing. Does anybody know what the one was? So he said, find a movement that works and stick to it, and damage does not matter. There's one more. Yep, you guessed it. Always loosely spread was the other one. That's right. So the reason for that, right, is just so that there's more visibility on the orbs. When you drop orbs, they're just not like all pixel stacked on one another, and then it's absolute terrorism to soak them. So what I'd like to do, we went through the guide video last week. What I'd like to do instead is go through first some of the changes that I've made to our plan here, and then we'll go through a quick for phase 1, and then we'll go through a quick real-time playthrough so you guys can see in real time what that looks like, not in a guide format but from like a POV format, from the hard side, so fire truck, bomb soaker side. So this is all the same blue frontal bait. However, once we get to the wet bombs here, I shifted the positioning over a little bit in the anti-clockwise fashion. So LK was over here near the Swabbles point and shifted the red team, the fire trucks, more over towards the wall. So LK is more going to be up near the wall, like between the boss and the wall. Swabbles will be kind of on the side, and Blast will be on the other side, more towards the inside. And then these will be the pairs there. But this is just a slight shift anti-clockwise by like, I don't know, about 70 degrees or so. And that's for a mechanic that's coming up later. And then also I've represented here what I'd like to have happen is that we actually AFK. So we'll do the web bombs, and then we'll chill, stay in the same spot, and then drop the venomous rain on the same spot as the web bombs. And then right after the venomous rain happens, we rotate. And then, so the blue team just needs to be aware. Police cars need to be coming around. Ooh, who joined us?
Wee woo, wee woo. Wee woo.
Wee whoa. Okay. Did Dirt join us?
Down 2, up 1. Sad.
Down 2, up 1?
I'm rescuing war.
Yo.
Like a firefighter.
Yeah, so you'll grab him and just take him around because the blue team, police cars are coming in hot with police brutality, so we want to get out of there ASAP. And then we're going around. So we're doing this rotation clockwise. Caligan, Ziddy, and Bana. Alt, myself, and Muck are rotating around like suchly. Then the fire trucks have the spread. They're going to stop this. Blue team, I don't have it represented here, but I think, Muck, what we'll be doing is we'll be like out here. We won't be war, but we'll still be outside. Like we just came in to soak a little bit, and then I think we'll still be outside for the transition later, because we're going to basically be playing near the center of the room. And the blue team likewise will be over here. And so the blue team can make room for the charge with these guys coming across, right? Blue team tucks in and makes space for LK, Swabbles, and Blast to come across. The melee will stay planted, right? Because if you look at the slide before, the red team will circle around and soak everything that the blue team dropped over here. And so red team's over here, blue team's over here now, right? So they swapped around. Once they swap, then red team's over here, and red team extends across over blue team. So this will just happen kind of naturally. And if blue team is tucked here, then LK, Swabbles, and Blast can be safe. The three that are out here, Ziddy, Caligan, and Bana, can just be aware that they're coming across and make sure to give them space. And then we can just negotiate with one another. Blue team basically wants to get with the blue team. So you guys will want to try to get back to your blue squad like as soon as you can for the way that we're going to transition. So there's going to be the easy set. So after we do the damage amp, the boss charges, we stop him with the thing. Then there's going to be an easy set where we just group up and we rotate. However, I don't have it represented here, but basically we'll do the opposite, like the opposite of what we just did, right? So like for Muck and myself and Halt, we will rotate inside instead of going outside. And then with our team here, we'll rotate on the inside and soak. And then Ziddy and Caligan and Bana can rotate on the outside. We're just swapping roles here because we swapped positions. But those three are not represented in this slide. But just don't run into each other and soak the orbs and we'll be alright. Now, this is why we had that 70-degree rotation. So after we rotate and soak, right, the teams swap positions. So red will be over here near the wall, blue will be out here together. That's how we'll move. So the boss can either teleport, if you remember with RNG, either here or here. But either way, we are going to keep relative position. Fire trucks are going to be on the wall, rotating around so they don't have to worry about it, and police cars are on the inside. And then we reset positioning from whatever. We're basically resetting back to the very beginning here of this positioning. We want to get back to this ASAP at that point. So it's like resets from there. So we get over. So in this case, red would want to rotate around this way, and blue team would want to go over this way. But we'll start, inside, outside, like this. So red team will come at it from here. The blue team could come here, and then we completely reset it to this type of scenario. And that's basically rinse repeat from here. The only difference is that Venomous Rain is first and then Web Bombs come out, but we handle it exactly the same way. So then you position and you stack Rain, Bombs, and we stack the orbs. This is the same thing we just did at the beginning of phase 1. We're just rinse repeating it, except for, yeah, Venomous Rain is first. And then rotate and soak. And we rotate and soak the same way on the inside group as we did before, and the police cars and fire trucks will rotate around this side. This is where the rescue would be again if it's back up. Last, I don't remember your cooldown will be up or not.
We'll find out.
We sure will. So we rotate and soak that. Then just like the last time, the fire trucks extend across. Blue team gives space. This is the last damage amp of the intermish. And then or last damage amp from the phase, and then we go into the intermission. And we'll just rotate over to skull and green, or not rotate but translate, right? We'll just move into the middle with the boss after the damage amp. So we do the damage amp on him, amp, damage. Once he's done with the damage amp, then we'll bring him towards the center. Blue team will cycle over here, and red team will cycle over here with the boss. Thanks. We'll just drag him over, and we'll just naturally go that way. You just want to return after these players, so Blast, Swabbles, LK, you'll have to play pretty heads up, and once the damage amp happens, unfortunately you'll need to return to your team. You'll want to get on your respective sides so that you're making space so that when the police cars come through, they ain't crashing into you.
Okay, I'll try to rescue LK over if it's up. I know you have it assigned for stuff, but
Yeah.
I'll play the CDs.
Cool. And then it goes into intermission. And so we can talk about that and walk through it, but I do want to go and watch the thing in real time. And my goal is to actually watch on the right side of the screen the video of what's happening here in real time, and then actually swap the slides so you can see what's happening over on the left side represented as well. So hopefully that's helpful. And we'll see if it is or not. Okay. You guys can have some volume. So they move in, they just grab their buffs, and then they're setting up in these positions. After the frontal, they move mid. And now they're setting up for web bombs here. So this player went pretty far. That's the LK's assignment over here towards the wall. And then they stayed AFK here. And then they rotate and soak those orbs, which is here. Sorry. And now they're doing
space for the webs blue.
The dash here soon. So yeah, I said give space for the webs blue. So the webs come across. Got the dash and the damage amp. And they return Breath of Aeons there for the damage amp to get across. And they've got rain and rotate here. This is the easy mode one. Notice what's happening in middle.
Watch the frontal.
And now they're gonna watch where the boss is, and they're gonna bring them together. You're red on the wall. Blue team is in the middle, and then they reset up for web bombs. And this is basically rinse repeat. They hit this positioning perfectly. Like, look at this. Their position, boom, for these. Then their position for web bombs already. So they're just chilling. Everybody's here. That's actually magic how they do that. That's so good. They're rotating around.
1, 2.
Give space for the webs, please, blue.
Good. Webs rotate across. Last damage amp at the phase. Last thing.
Back to your camps.
Yep, red returns to their side. And that all happens in 2 minutes. 2 minutes, and then the phase is over. And we go into intermission. Cool. So they should be on skull and green, I believe.
Spread out.
but then they don't quite get there. Or are they doing red and blue there? I guess they are. It just depends probably where the boss teleports to, and then what makes sense should just be opposite of each other. We'll call it when we get there, and we'll go over intermission and how that works exactly here pretty soon. Okay, any questions about all that and the assignments that you guys have from P1 before we move on to intermission?
Which one was the immunity? Is it the first one?
It
For the
is
poison.
this one. After we translate and we rotate over, so fire trucks on the outside, police cars on the middle, it's this one. So this venomous rain number 3. And it's reverse order, right? It's venomous rain and we AFK and then white bumps happen. It's this venomous rain that typically they'll immune. But you have to make sure to cancel it so that you are not immune for when bombs come out. You can't be immune for the bombs, otherwise you screw up tethers. So that happens. See if I can find where that happens exactly. Is that here? Almost.
While you're looking for it, what are you gonna do about mages and blink?
Web bombs.
What am I gonna do about it?
Set up for the
Right
range.
there.
So
Right
yeah,
there, hit immunity.
yep, it's immunities here.
Web bombs.
Mages and blink.
We don't
Gotta
have
be
those.
banned, right?
They should be able to do it quite a bit, but yeah, they'll have to be very smart about it. Like this rotation here, they can actually
kill you guys.
they can blink over here and get out of the way so that we can actually cut this corner more. But they have to be very careful not to blink into like you and blast, right? So just have to be very aware of your surroundings, where you're going. It's not banned outright, but it is something you want to be very careful of. Cool. Any other questions about these 11 slides for P1? You can only upload 10 slides at once, by the way, I found in Discord, so I had to do that. And then also I have to start another raid plan because you can only have 22 slides per raid plan. And I'm only through intermission 2. I've got to add phase 3 onto this. Okay, no questions. Then we will go into the guide here and we'll just kind of talk about it step by step for intermission setup. He's got some really good tips here. Intermission, though, in general, these pizza slices, right? You have to give them their full respect. The animation or the graphic that you see on the ground is not accurate, unfortunately. So you have to just give this mechanic its due respect, and then you'll do pretty well with it. Intermission, once you understand it, is relatively simple. So I think we're going into it
Intermission
here.
1 and Intermission 2 are relatively straightforward. For Intermission 1, red and blue players follow Anubarash to the center of the room and loosely spread on top of their respective red or blue markers, where the first pie slice will spawn. Intermission 1 is completely scripted, and the same pie slices will always activate from pole to pole, meaning you can always expect the same pie slice to spawn. The first pie slice in each set will also cause each player to spawn orbs. Make sure during this entire intermission that you always remain loosely spread and communicate any orb stacks that you see. After spawning orbs, players rotate counterclockwise across from each other until reaching the other side. Wait for the first slice to blow up and then enter and soak the orb. After finishing the first phase, players must then scoot to the left over to where the last slice blows up, as it will be where the first slice spawns next time. After spawning a second set of orbs, players once again rotate to the other side. This is repeated once more, although without any more scooting to the left, for soaking a total of 3 orb sets. After spawning a third orb set, players must hold DPS to break the shield as late as possible before the fourth set of orbs. We hold DPS here to delay the phase ending so that DPS cooldowns will be available for an upcoming damage amp. 2 ranged players of opposite colors can also stand outside the raid, at the interface of 2 pie slices. Rather than rotate with the raid, these players simply
So this is you, Muck. So Muck, Ziddy, and Halt and Caligon over here are satellite positions. So you're not rotating around with the bulk of the raid. You're actually doing your own thing out here. But you're basically between 2 pie slices dancing. Think like think like Kai'Veza basically, but you guys are also rotating around each other while you're dodging those pie slices to soak each other's orb.
Okay.
And you have 20 seconds to do so. So it's not very fast that you need to soak the orb. It's more important that you're dodging the pie slices and just dodging each other. And then you can get to the soak eventually.
Rotate around each other to soak their orbs. This is completely optional and only helps by subtracting a red and blue orb from the red and blue teams. It is generally not recommended that you assign more than 1 or 2 ranged pairs to do this.
Cool. So we went through that pretty quick. We can break it down here. What they do here in this POV portion. Let's see here. Okay, they're setting up here. Yeah.
Spread out. Go left. Red is
So
way
they
off.
rotate around left first. So red and blue, that you should be on your respective colors. So they start on red, start on blue, and then they rotate left. And then they will pause before they soak. They need to wait for this pie slice to go off before they soak.
Spawn. Weird.
Wait. And now go. Go and soak.
Ready for the dip.
And then he says ready for the dip. And they're going to, after this the last pie slice goes off, they are dipping into this pie slice. So everybody dips left. And this is to make it so it's easier to soak later. So they're going to dip, and then drop their orbs over here, and then go right. So if you'll notice at the beginning, they started off going left, but now they are going right, and you go left first, and then right for the rest of the phase. The rest of the intermission phase, every time the orbs drop, you will rotate around to the right. It's only the first one that you rotate left. And this one, they shouldn't have to wait nearly as much. This one should blow up, and they should be able to soak pretty quickly, which is why they dipped. And so now they're going to stay. There's no dipping. They're not going to dip over to the left. They're just going to rotate right. So it's very simple at this point. They're just going to rotate right. They're saying slow on the boss. They're trying to wait to soak another set of orbs. And that's it. So it's pretty quick there. Let's see if we can catch that. Again. But the first one is left, and then everything else is right. But there is, like, after you soak the first time, there's a little hitch in your get along where you'll dip left and drop orbs just to the left. So they went left here. They're going to soak, and then they're going to wait for that pie slice and dip and drop,
Dip in.
and then go right
Go right.
after the drop.
There's a demonic blue orb.
Way in the back.
We're having,
Demonic.
like, roars or something.
Yeah, we have some CDs organized, but it's not fully necessary. You end up kind of waiting around anyway, but they are somewhat helpful.
Soak and spread, soak and spread.
So they soak, and then they just stay here until orbs spawn after the soak, and then they go right.
60 million.
Very simple.
50,
And then they just
40,
wait.
30.
Oh, they're actually gonna soak first. But yeah, they just went through. That one actually, I kind of want to see that. That one again. That didn't go quite as I expected.
Hit the boss.
So
50.
orbs are over here. And oh, they noticed this pie slice went last, so they have some time. And so they just soaked it. And so you want to delay that. There's the bar from weak auras that will tell you basically how long you have until the cast goes. This one actually should have a timer bar on like where you should hit it. But anyway, you can see whether or not you are ahead or behind. And it looks like
20.
okay, there's no time on that cast bar. Okay, so any questions about intermission and how this works? I have it represented here as well. So you've got the initial drops, and then they go left. So they go clockwise first, and then it's anti-clock for the rest of the phase. They go clockwise first, then you pause before you soak, wait for that pie slice to blow up, and then you move over and soak the orbs. And then we are going, after you soak the orbs, you dip left, so small dip to the left pie slice with a spread, right? You still always want to be slightly spread. So we dip left, 1 pie slice over, and then go back right after that drop. And then we rotate right. And we'll rotate right or counterclockwise every time from here. Soak these. And then, yep, rotate right again. And then we go into P2. Seems simple enough.
Yeah.
Hit it. Left, dip. Right, right.
Done. Yep.
I'll need 8 pulls to get the dance right.
8 pulls. 8 pulls,
Yeah.
solo the wolves. Okay, cool. Then my only other goal tonight was to introduce phase 2 to y'all. So let's watch the vid and talk about it. Is audio okay for you guys? Can
The
you
key part
hear
of
him?
phase 2 is understanding the dance of
You guys are okay? Audio levels are okay? I can crank this a little bit more.
That's fine.
Okay. Understanding the dance, he said.
web vortex while remaining calm during the dispel mechanic. Players start on the mark opposite of their color, red players on blue, and blue players on red. A few seconds after P2 starts, a blue frontal will go out. Ranged players can attempt to bait this off of the melee stack, but it's not critical. After the frontal, blue players correct themselves so they're once again across from the red players. Then Takash will do his web vortex mechanic, which functions differently in Mythic.
So yeah, it functions differently in Mythic. He'll talk about it here in a
Instead
second.
of pulling in all players, she will pull in either the red or blue team at random, and then after a short delay, pull in the other color. All players hit by this mechanic will also spawn orbs where they were standing before being pulled in. If no action is taken, everyone will collide and instantly die. To deal with this, the first team that gets pulled in, regardless of their color, must run left and right, out of the purple circle. This will clear the way for the opposite color to get pulled in, while breaking most of the web pairs on average. For consistency, individual players will be assigned left or right, so that we always split up 50-50. After running left and right, players circle back and soak orbs on the other side. The second set of players that get pulled in will instead run through the boss and soak orbs on their way out. Both teams of players are then free to break their webs and soak the remaining orbs. There is no rush from either team to soak orbs. So if an orb is missed when getting out of the purple circle, players can enter it later after it pops. It's extremely important to remember that whichever team gets pulled in first is random, so any player must react to whether they need to split up or run through the boss. Immediately after the web vortex, the dispel mechanic will happen. In Mythic, there are 5 debuffs that go out, and all 5 must be used to stun Takaj. During this moment, it's very easy to panic and find yourself out of position, either running into players of the opposite color or finding yourself in a position that causes a dispel to jump to another player. Players should be targeting Takaj and look at the large red hitbox underneath her. Entering that red circle is forbidden for all players except for the single person that is about to get dispelled. Dispels will be assigned a number from 1 to 5 using a weak aura, and each dispel will be assigned a healer. When it is a raider's turn to be dispelled, they will run to the center of Takaj's hitbox. After being dispelled, they will then run back the direction they came from. Blue dispels will be assigned before red ones, and healers will be prioritized above melee, which will be prioritized above ranged players. This means that Mistweaver monks and holy paladins will be the first players generally to be dispelled. Dispels will be called out by the raid leader as they need to happen.
2, 1, go. Second is Google by Awake. 2, 1, go. Mono by Caligus. 2, 1, go. Pursuit by Mikey in 2, 1, go. Ninja by Vox in 3, 2, 1, go.
The 5th dispel will be delayed slightly to milk damage. Bloodlust will be used here immediately after the first dispel. This is
Yep, this is
approximately
last.
3.5 minutes into the fight, so 3 minutes should just barely be available, and 2 minutes should be held until this point. Beetle ads will also spawn here, so Death Knights make sure to death grip whenever possible. After the damage amp, red players and blue players group up on their respective markers across from each other. Red players on red, blue players on blue. A red frontal will happen, followed by a blue frontal. Players rotate left to dodge. Immediately after, Takaj will teleport to one of several locations and cast a web vortex after a short delay. The raid needs to pop movement cooldowns and move towards Takaj as quickly as possible. The general principle of movement here is that the raid should translate towards Takaj and maintain their relative positioning. i.e., if red is left when facing towards Takaj, they stay left as they move over. After moving, or even while moving if you're too slow, Takash will do his web vortex mechanic. We follow the same rules as before, where the first group that gets pulled in goes left and right, while the second group goes through the boss. After this, we get a second set of dispels. However, this one is trickier because the boss teleports halfway through our dispel chain. To do this, we do the first 2 dispels on the edge of the room and the remaining 3 dispels in the middle of the room. Whoever is assigned to dispel 3 should pre-move to the exact center of the room. While this is happening, red players should bait a red frontal away from the center of the room to not interfere with dispels going off. After the 5th dispel, we transition into intermission 2. There isn't much to be said about intermission 2, as it's much easier than...
Cool. So we'll stop right there. So let's talk about this just a little bit. Let's go back to beginning of P2. So we set up on opposite our respective markers. So red team on blue, blue team on red. Then we get our web vortex, which is one of 2 main mechanics here. It's the web vortex, and then it's the dispels, which dispel happens right after the web vortex. Now in this phase, in P2, web vortex, everybody breaks their webs, so nobody's keeping them, so it's a little less complex in terms of how it's planned. So forgive me if this doesn't make any sense as far as how this diagram looks. This is the best that I could represent it. So if you imagine the teams are on their opposite colors, right? Blue team over here, red team over here. When the grip happens, so this graphic is like right as the grip is happening for both teams. If blue team gets gripped in first here, this is what you would do, right? Remember, it's random. It can be blue or red first. We don't know until it's happening. If the blue team gets gripped in first, they will go left and right to clear a space for the second team, which is red here, right down the middle. So they go left and right, and then after they dodge out of the purple circle, they move over and soak. Remember, you have 20 seconds to get over and soak these orbs. So it's totally fine. You wanna move out and you wanna break your webs. Now, whether or not you're going left or right is assigned to you. So like for the roster here, I actually have it assigned with a letter here. So you know whether or not you're going to be going left or right if you get gripped first. So you'll just want to memorize that and just take note of that. And that's the plan for you. So let's say if blue got pulled in, right? Police cars get pulled in first. If I'm Vaskin, I got pulled in from here, so I will run right. I'll go this way. But if I'm Vex, I get pulled in from here, I go left. I go down here. And then, yeah, fire trucks would just come through. So that's the way that works. Any questions about web vortex and how that's handled? Equestrians.
Is left and right relative to you facing the boss?
Yeah, so it's from these positions from before the web vortex happens. So this is just before you get gripped. So if I am blue here, right, the frontal just happens so I can move back. Now I'm going to get gripped in. Blue gets gripped in first, right? So that's you, Dirt. So you would think, yeah, relative to where you are now, looking at the boss, you would go right. So you'd go towards skull and star area. So you'd run out that way. So this would be you over here.
If I was on red, then I'd go to triangle as right.
Red, you'd go. If red got gripped first, yeah, then you'd go triangle as right. Yep.
Okay.
It's red relative to you and you facing the boss before the grip. Good question. I know people
are we
struggle with
pairing
that.
up to try to bait the links?
That's
in the liquid video. They talk about that.
Yeah, good question. War was in my DMs talking about that. I don't think it's worth worrying about. I think just loose spread and then reacting. Worst case scenario is actually what you see in the video here when they did that. So he went... I wonder if I can find it.
Mechanic. We follow the same rules as before, where the first group that gets pulled in...
So they went right here, right? But he's still tethered to this guy because they didn't pair off or whatever, which the pairing isn't actually perfect for baiting whether or not you're going to get paired with the other person. It's just a way to limit some damage on you. But basically all this is it's like it's 400k per second. So you're looking at, I calculated basically with other mechanics going on, you can hold on to this for 10 seconds if you don't press any buttons, which we should. I have like personals assigned for Web Vortex specifically. But if you don't press any buttons, you have 10 seconds to snap these webs before you're in any danger of death. So going the same direction as your web partner is what you're risking if you don't assign it. Doesn't seem to me to be a problem. So short answer, no, is where we are not assigned to that. At least right now. If there's something that I didn't foresee and I need to assign it, then I will. But as of right now, we're gonna play it more by ear and just have more of our natural positions and then run. If you get to break your web because your person went the opposite way right away, great. If you didn't, that's also fine. One of you just can run towards the orbs that you're soaking. So like this guy is gonna run and soak. This guy's gonna stay and snap.
However, this one is,
and then he can just wait a little bit. Look at this. He still has 16 seconds to soak the red orbs here after he's basically been delayed, and the red orbs are over here. So he doesn't have that far to go. So I think timing wise for soaking, it's not a big deal, and damage wise, it's not going to be a big deal. So I think we're going to be okay without the extra complexity of the assignment. And I want to limit the cognitive load to things that are absolutely necessary if possible. Cool. Good questions. Any other questions about Webby Vortex?
Webby V's, as they say.
Webby V's. Webby V Texies. So then I have like this one. There's going to be one that's on the side of the room for the next one. And so I did red first as an example on this one. So red would go out and do this. In the diagrams, which these are all in the Discord. So if the diagrams are helpful to you, those are there. Okay. So then the next thing is the dispels. He talked about this a little bit. Dispels happen right after the vortex, right? So we soak, now we're on our correct sides. The key here, there's a lot of things that I want you guys to know because there's a lot happening and people panic. So the more that you know beforehand, it's going to help you seem knowledgeable and also help you calm down and slow down the fight because it's not that big of a deal. So the key that he highlighted is target Takaj. There are two reasons for this. Number one is that it gives you a hitbox that he's around, and that's like a no-fly zone. You do not enter there unless your name is called to be dispelled, right? So you know you can see the hitbox when you're targeting him, and you know not to enter that. Number two, the reason for that is that the damage amp actually begins after the first of the 5 dispels happens. So each dispel that happens stacks a 20% damage amp on this mother brother, which I think you want to lust after the very first dispel for that reason, because you don't actually have that much time to use those dispels. In most VODs that I've seen, they lust at the very end of it, but they don't have time. They actually have to run, and they don't use the entirety of the lust. I think the biggest value on lust is right after the very first dispel that happens. And so if you're already targeting to Takaj, you know exactly where the no-fly zone is, and you're going to be hitting the right guy for the damage amp. So target him, that's number one. And basically it's first come, first serve. I have the healers assigned with their dispels, and the graphic will show up, and I will call their name beforehand. But this is how it's going to happen in terms of what's dispelled. So once your name is called, it'll be like War in 3, 2, 1, go. And so War has, running from fire truck team, 3 seconds basically to get to the center of mass, like the center of his hitbox, so it does not confuse with anything else, any other player, and does not jump to any other player. If nobody else is in the hitbox and War is in the center, there's absolutely no way that it jumps to anybody random. It also can't jump to this boss, by the way, so if they are stacked, I moved it off for visual clarity, but if they are stacked, and that's not bad here, it will never jump to Fat Boy. It will only jump to Kosh as a valid target, as far as I understand it. So as these are going, the raid takes damage every dispel that happens. Remember, you do start getting a 20% damage amp per dispel, so that ramps into it. So yeah, after first dispel, I believe we lust, and that would be ideal here. This first one's really easy to play because the boss doesn't move in between all of it. He actually teleports in the middle of the next set of dispels, so that adds a nice little spiciness to it. The first one fairly easy. Any questions about how the dispels work? I think it's fairly obvious to say, right? It's the most important part, right? This is our egg breaks or whatever. This needs to happen. So your name is called. When you have this, your damage does not matter, right? Just like it never does during this fight. You will just stop what you're doing and run to the very center of the hitbox. Top-down camera, run right into the center of that hitbox, get dispelled, and then you leave. You go back to your respective team. So if like this was me and I was on red team and I was called, I would go in 3, 2, 1, gets dispelled, boom, bing, back to my team. And then it would call somebody else. And that way, if somebody from the blue team is coming over, I am already out of the way, right? Right after the dispel happens. Bing. And that's it. That's it for phase 2. It's just the web vortex. If you understand this calculus of how web vortex works and the logic behind it, right? And how to handle it, and you understand the dispels, then you are good to go. It gets a little bit more complex towards the tail end. There's one thing here, other thing that we need to go over though, and that's the movement. So this is RNG again. So the long skinny can after these frontals can teleport in any of the 4 cardinal directions. Can teleport over here, over here, over here, over here. It's completely random. We do not know where he's going to be, but we know where we're going to be. And so we are going to be here. So this is like an easy version, right? If the boss is here or if it's over here, it's pretty easy, right? We just translate and we go. And this is what you see in the VOD is what happens. But what happens if the boss goes over here, right? Because we are basically stacked. We're all in a line. We can't run there at the same time, or we will collide with one another at different speeds. So we need a convention for how we're going to handle that. So that is here. So if the long skinny teleports either here or here, the convention is red is right. So red, as you're facing the long skinny, we run here, and we go right. If the long skinny went here, red team would actually go the opposite way. They'd go over on the right. But red goes right, blue goes left, is the convention for that one. And this one's harder because he teleports. We have to react quickly and move because there's a web vortex coming. He's about to grip us in. And if we don't get in position before he grips, then we're going to be in trouble. We're not going to be able to soak the orbs as well at that point. So we want to move very quickly, stop what we're doing, move very quickly, and get to the flanks of the long skinny at this point. So there's 2 web vortexes followed by 2 dispel sections, and there's this teleport that's in between them, and that's the entirety of phase 2. That's everything that you need to know about that. Cool, and we went over weak auras. So I think, knowledge-wise, if you're grasping all of that, you're going to be very well set up for the fight. What I've heard some teams say is don't optimize, right? As far as for damage, like don't worry about optimization of damage, because, and that's going to be hard for us because we often do that. Like, can I trade with this person on their assignment for this thing? No, basically no is the answer for that. We got to replicate very consistent movements, and we're not optimizing for damage just because, you know, it's like 5% better for you to do this than some other person. We don't care about that, and we need to kind of get into their mentality of getting this movement down, and then boss die. Cool. Does anybody have any questions about P1, Intermission 1, or P2? Before I call it here, I think we've been focusing on this for just under an hour, so I don't want to go any further. But I'm happy to discuss if anybody has any thoughts or ideas.
Miss Dispel is a white breaker. Like if the Dispel jumps on a
No.
not the boss.
That's recoverable. So if it jumps to another player, it goes back into my queue. I can call it later. We just have to accelerate our dispelling. So it does make it harder for sure. It's not a guaranteed wipe.
Like the damage amp that you get the extra 20%? No?
It jumps to another player, so you still can get it to the boss. It just now I have to accelerate. Like let's say it's Dispel 2, right? So there's 5 Dispels. First one goes to the boss, second one doesn't get there and jumps to another player. We keep moving along with the list. Basically in the priority queue, that one that jumped to the other player is now last in the priority queue, and we go next to the 3rd Dispel, 4th Dispel, 5th Dispel, and then the jump one at the very end. And so it just increases the number of Dispels we have to do. So I have to accelerate like the countdown on each one of them and just do it a little faster. But not a guaranteed wipe, but very likely. And yeah, you can't really miss more than one, and we shouldn't be missing more than one. It's fairly simple to target the boss, and when your name is called, run to the center of the hitbox of the long skinny. Should be pretty chill. But it's not. A lot of players panic at this point, but we won't, because we're going to be very informed, very demure. Okay, no more questions. I'll stop the recording.